evening. Welcome to the IIT Interaction Center. Welcome to and to all those who are here in person and joining us from elsewhere online. Subject of today's meeting is extraterrestrial care. This topic is very special because all the meetings that we've had previously at the center, and this is the first one that brings healthcare and technology together in discussion. Secondly, this is a truly interdisciplinary area where aeronautical engineering, aerospace medicine, all branches of engineering, technology, physical sciences come together to find solutions or countermeasures for various hazards and complex situations that are found in extraterrestrial space. And solutions towards the sustenance of human life and maintenance of health and functional efficacy depend on these countermeasures. And we look forward to hearing from Dr. Ganapathy on what are the developments in this area and also elaborate on the disciplinary nature of the field. Also, please note that though it might seem a short break, but actually technology transfer from, as you will explain to us, trickles down from these advanced areas to probably terrestrial medicine as well. Eventually, we've seen this repeatedly in other mining areas as well. Dr. Ganapathy is a senior neurosurgeon with 3 decades of plus of experience, with an special interest in stereotactic and functional neurosurgery. He also has a passion for technology over again 3 decades or so, with special interest in telemedicine. Previously, telemedicine networking and he also has interest in remote medicine, which is an extension really of conventional telemedicine, hence his interest in extraterrestrial medicine. Before I invite Dr. Ganapathy, I request those who are logged in to mute and close the videos and press them.
Thank you very much. It's always a pleasure and a privilege to be back in IIT, including the IIT Alumni Club. I intend to convince every one of you in the next 2000 seconds or so that technology transfer from space medicine to the real healthcare on Earth is already happening. And I'm sure that in my lifetime, I'm going to see the direct benefits of this. I've divided my talk into 5 portions. The first few minutes on introduction to space. Then as a passionate Indian, that I'm going to convince you that the Indian manned mission is going to truly revolutionize healthcare even in India. And then my personal experience exactly today, 18th December 2019, 2 years ago on this very day, I had the opportunity to spend several hours with astronauts as well as directly interact with the International Space Station. And finally, I'm going to talk on the effect of space environment on human body. And the most important part of my talk is give you specific illustrations of how space medicine is going to change healthcare to you and me. If not to you and me, certainly to our children and grandchildren. I remember when I was in school, how Sputnik 2 launched the first dog in outer space, 1957. I remember the excitement of Yuri Gagarin leaving the shores of the Earth, as it were, in 1961. Today, ladies and gentlemen, 622 individuals have left the Earth and have come back to the Earth. A Russian astronaut has spent 678 days in space, absolutely unimaginable. But these are the pioneers from whom we have learned so much. Again, women have showed that they are in no way different from men, and women also have spent, Peggy Whitson, for example, has spent 665 days. The last few weeks, all of us would have read in the media about the race which is going on. the billionaire space race. Is it Branson? Is it Elon Musk? Is it Bezos? These are the people fighting with each other for galactic supremacy. Many of us might think that this is absolutely ridiculous. The super rich billionaires talking of space tourism when there are millions and millions of individuals on Earth without food to eat or water to drink. But believe me, the fallout of this is going to happen and it's going to benefit us. Here you see a father and a son who have left the Earth and then come back to the Earth. I love this photograph taken on 23rd November 1963. It was from this humble beginnings that the Indian Space Research Organization has now become number 3 or number 4 in the entire universe. Look at this man transporting a rocket on a bicycle. We have come a long, long way from then. You need to understand that the budget of ISRO is $1.7 billion, 10% or less than 10% of the budget of NASA, and Apple has an estimate of more than $285 billion. It is with this limited funding that ISRO has successfully sent the Mangalyaan mission to Mars. In January 2019, it was my privilege to have been associated with an international symposium on human spaceflight and exploration. I was the only medical doctor, and I hope I convinced the audience that even though 500 industries are involved in the launch of Gaganyaan, India's Waimonauts, as we call them, instead of using astronauts and cosmonauts, in spite of that, healthcare, even though Indian astronauts are going to be in low Earth orbit, about 400 kilometers above the Earth for just 6 to 7 days, nevertheless, this is the ultimate in telemedicine, remote healthcare, monitoring their health every second. Very recently, just a couple of days ago, the Minister for Space has publicly announced that India's first space station, and this is absolutely exciting, is going to be launched by the year 2030, just 10 years from now. India's astronauts have come back from Russia. They are right now in Bangalore undergoing their secondary training. And again, the humanoid, this is 100% indigenously developed. In a few months from now, by the middle of 2022, the crew escape system or an unmanned mission, 2 unmanned missions are going to take place in the next couple of months, where a humanoid, and I have actually seen this humanoid functioning, it's absolutely remarkable. And this humanoid is going to simulate what our astronauts are going to do in outer space. And again, this is 100% indigenous, totally made. Now, are we not, is it something is not wrong somewhere? When we have no water to drink, why are we talking of all this? And this is what is happening. Idli, sambar, upma, vegetable pulao, and you name it, whatever it is. These have been customized to deal with microgravity. And believe me, the effect, the fallout is already in motion. Food warmer technology. The warmer which I send with my grandson, do I realize that when my grandson goes to school with my daughter, giving him his lunch, do I understand that this food warmer technology is a direct application of technology transfer to ensure that cosmonauts in outer space give good food? The repercussions of this are enormous. Food safety program for space has taken over on Earth completely. This is just one example. I'm going to spend a few minutes being very personal, but sharing with you or trying to share with you the excitement which I had when I spent a few hours in the Johnson Space Mission Center. Unlike ISRO, to my surprise, NASA is very open, very transparent. Though, of course, I had to go through some paperwork to get the security clearance. It was amazing that they shared with a visitor like me. They allowed me to go to every single place, and I was escorted by 2 very senior flight surgeons. And one of the most thrilling moments of my life when I was talking to this astronaut who was situated 400 kilometers above the Earth, working in the International Space Station, exactly 2 years before, to this day, on December the 18th. The International Space Station is a remarkable example of cooperation among nations. I wonder why we fight with each other when we can show cooperation from 108 countries. 108 countries have contributed to the establishment of this space laboratory, which is the size of 3 football fields and which has been in position for more than 20 years. I understand that the ISS is going to be replaced very soon. China is going to launch its own ISS very soon. And India has already planned to launch an ISS in the next 10 years. Now, I think we need to understand what exactly we mean by space. A very simple way which I remember is if we travel 1,000 kilometers a day, all of us are able to relate to this. It will take us 1 year to reach the moon. In other words, 365,000 kilometers, which is pretty short by intergalactic standards. On the other hand, to reach Mars, the distance between the Earth and the Mars varies entirely depending on when we are launching this flight. And there already the exact dates have been identified when Mars is closest to the Earth. Even when Mars is closest to the Earth, it would take at the present technology 8 to 9 months to reach Mars and another 8 to 9 months to come back from Mars. This is not as preposterous as it sounds. 2030 is not too far away. Hopefully, most of us will be there. We will watch on our TV the first launch of the manned mission to Mars, and hopefully we will see all of them, if not most of them, come back. It's not a one-way ticket. Astronauts have already been shortlisted for the intensive training which occurs when the trip to Mars is being made. The International Space Station, as you can see, at any given time has 6 to 8 members on board, people from Japan, people from the Middle East, people from various countries. This began in 1998 and major elements were completed in 2011. So as I mentioned earlier, this is located 400 kilometers above the Earth. Now, this was just a quick photograph. This gentleman with whom I spent some time has stayed 240 days. And with typical American humor, I remember he's telling me, hey, doc, I think you should go and see the view from there is really great. I mean, this was typical American humor. How I wish I could do that. Of course, it's not going to happen. And these were all some of the photographs which I took when I was there. I hope this, I don't know that this video will work. Okay, doesn't matter. This is the world's largest swimming pool, 4 times the size of the Olympic swimming pool. And you can see here, this amazing woman who is just about 30, 32 years old, an MD PhD, an MD medicine PhD in aerospace engineering. Just look at her face. I think it says it all. 8 hours she spent under the water continuously, simulating microgravity, simulating radiation, simulating the intense cold which is going to be felt. 8 hours she stayed here, and just look at her when she came out. Look at her face, it says it all. This is a character of people who are going to be astronauts or going into outer space. And this was absolutely amazing, the training which they're going to do. Now, what was exciting to me as a medical doctor is the enormous backup, second backup, third backup, fourth backup. The human space flight system has electrical power systems which monitor the health monitoring systems. How I wish that as medical doctors, we have 1% of the efficiency which the technologists and the engineers show when they monitor the health of every rocket, of every space station, of every single chip. And to me, I was absolutely shocked when the flight surgeons told me that not only is the health of the astronauts monitored weeks before they go into outer space, but the health of every single individual directly or indirectly connected with the healthcare launch is monitored. And it makes sense. I would never have thought about it. The technician in the lowest ladder, if this technician had a fight with his wife 5 days before the launch, he would not be mentally in that frame of mind required. This is the lesson I learned. Teamwork, together everyone achieves more. There is no I. The astronaut maybe gets all the adulation and encomiums, but this would have taken place only because of the passion and dedication of the technician who tightened the bolt in the correct way. I'm going to spend the next few minutes telling you what actually happens to the human body when you go into outer space. How does space affect the human body? It affects every system of the human body. It affects the blood, the white blood corpuscles, one becomes anemic. The single most important is radiation and microgravity. The radiation which we get, this is very simple actually. If you want to reduce the radiation to the human body, you need to put walls. The spaceship must have huge lead-lined walls. Those who use who use the linear accelerator, who use a proton equipment, radiologists, etc., understand that to reduce the dissemination of radiation, we need huge, thick lead-lined walls. Now, if you do that in a spaceship, the weight increases tremendously, and this has to be factored in when at the velocity, the launch, etc. Therefore, there is a trade-off. They have to compromise. So the radiation which the astronauts are exposed to, particularly on a mission to Mars, is far more than is acceptable. So enormous amount of work is being done, and this has resulted in better diagnostic facilities on Earth, better methods of radiotherapy for treating cancer on the Earth, etc. Heart and blood vessels, bones, osteoporosis. This is a direct fallout. Osteoporosis is very common among women, particularly in postmenopausal women. When you are exposed to microgravity, your muscle mass and your bone mass decreases by as much as 1.5% per month, which means if you have stayed in outer space for 1 year, which many people have done, 18% of your bone mass and muscle mass have decreased, and obviously you are highly prone to develop fractures. Information such as this has helped us and will continue to help us better healthcare on the world. The most common, which was discovered even 40-50 years ago, is what is described as puffy face and bird leg syndrome. Because most of the astronauts, all the astronauts at any given time are in a reverse position because of microgravity. They are literally floating in outer space. You cannot all the time sit down the way I am doing it. And because of this, all the fluid, the blood goes into the face and reducing the blood supply to the legs. This causes a puffy face, and the legs become much smaller, and this is now referred to as a puffy face and bird leg syndrome. Cognition changes in outer space. Common sense tells you that an astronaut has to be physically and mentally in top form. There is no option. You just cannot take even a 1% chance of a delayed response, either a physical or a mental response. Easily said, but very difficult to implement it. Higher radiation exposure, the amount of experiments which have been done in laboratories, NASA laboratories, European Space Agency, including ISRO and many organizations, fundamental knowledge on the effects of radiation on cells, all this have been produced. Living in an isolated environment, I just can't dream of how somebody can be in outer space for 678 days, 300 days continuously. Mentally taxing from going from a microgravity environment to a full gravity environment. But most astronauts have said it is even more difficult to come back to the Earth. The body gets accustomed so quickly to a microgravity environment that even if you're in outer space for a week or 10 days, when you re-enter the Earth's atmosphere, coming back to the Earth's gravity is much more difficult than going to outer gravity. As some astronauts say, there are 20 things going on at the same time, and all this affects our decision, our ability to take decisions. Back pain. It will be surprised to know that almost 80% of astronauts complain of back pain. Now, this has led to enormous development of seats, of positioning, and all this has a direct effect on how our tables and chairs are going to be redesigned. Most of us spend several hours in front of a computer and what we take for granted. All this have been designed because of back pain, managing back pain in outer space. MRI scans have been done before and after astronauts go into outer space, and they have scientifically documented that the hydration in the intervertebral disc comes down. They have actually showed a 2-centimeter reduction in the height of the spinal column in astronauts who have spent more than 200 days. One astronaut had to undergo an emergency surgery, a disc removal immediately after he landed, and many people have had disc excision a few weeks after their return to the Earth. The most fascinating thing is that the health care of everybody who goes into outer space is followed up meticulously, and the long-term follow-up is even available 15 years, 20 years, 25 years later. But the numbers are so small, it is difficult to come to a statistically significant observation. But at the moment, there is no increase in cancers, even after a long-term follow-up of people who have been exposed to radiation. Space headache. Today, the International Classification of Diseases, space headache has been classified as a new secondary headache. Headaches are extremely common in astronauts, cosmonauts, etc., those who go into outer space. In one specific study, 71% of them who were studied in detail experienced at least one headache episode while in space when they had no episode on Earth. The commonest problem which is faced by astronauts is what is called the neurovestibular system. And there, not only tinnitus, where they hear sound, but most important, the vestibular functions which are responsible for our positioning on Earth. Because of microgravity, there are a variety of clinical symptoms, including postural illusions, sensations of rotation, dizziness, vertigo, epigastric discomfort, problems in muscular coordination, performance, movement to the eyeball, erratic movement to the eyeball, which is called nystagmus, all lead to this neurovestibular syndrome. Again, multimodal quantitative MRI studies have been done, and all this has led to fundamental knowledge in how the vestibular system operates on the Earth. Again, papilledema. Papilledema is a medical term used for increased intracranial tension, and a large number of astronauts, almost 75% of them, have been shown to have increased intracranial pressure, leading to visual impairment. And again, enormous studies have been done on this, and this has led to fundamental knowledge on how intracranial pressure contributes to raise intraocular pressure, etc. Blood-brain barrier disruption, disruption of cerebrospinal flow, etc., etc. The effects of microgravity on the nervous system, this has been simulated in laboratories. Thousands, no exaggeration, thousands of rats and other small body animals, rabbits and dogs, etc., including chimpanzees, have been exhibited to radiation at different levels. They have been sacrificed, and detailed histological studies have been done to show the effect of radiation. All this is necessary if we are going to send men to Mars, and I am absolutely confident this is going to take place, if not in 2030, definitely before 2035. I now come to the last part of my talk, which I think is the most important talk. Now, this is a very controversial issue. Trillions of dollars have been spent on exploration of outer space. We have no water to drink, we have no food to eat. Millions of people are dying every day of malnutrition. And how is it fair for the super billionaires just to spend 5 minutes in outer space to spend millions and millions of dollars? Well, you can judge the answer yourself. We are in a stage of transition. All transitions offer great opportunities. It will take another 10 years, maybe 15 years, but unless you make a beginning, you will never improve what is being done now. So I'm going to show you with specific illustrations. NASA brings out a monthly report, and they have documented at least 2,100 specific examples of technology transfer, a direct cause and effect, a causal not a casual relation, but a cause and effect relationship between space technology and the development of this. I'm just going to show you 8 or 10 examples so that you understand what it is. Now, healthcare designed for extreme space environments has improved care on Earth. Unique environment of space, particularly microgravity, radiation, exposure to isolation, have resulted in studying the effectiveness and testing of drugs. I belong to the BC era. I am not talking of before Corona, I'm talking of before computers. I was the last neurosurgeon in India who qualified in the late 70s when there was not a single computer available in a hospital environment in India. Even until a few years ago, it took decades before a drug could be approved for clinical trials and actually implemented in clinical practice. Today, thanks to space technology, there has been a tremendous reduction in the cost of drug development. The corona vaccine has all been brought out in an incredible time of 6 months, 9 months, 1 year. This would never ever have taken place but for simulation, which is a direct consequence of space technology. At least $100 million can be served. 10% of the cost in developing a drug has directly been shown to have been reduced using space technology. Wearable technology, wearable sensors. My grandchildren wear smartphones, and these smartphones check their oxygenation, check their pulse rate, BP, non-invasive blood sugar management, etc. All this became because wearable technology was used by astronauts. A company called AstroSkin today collects data, voluminous data from ISS, all the astronauts who are on the International Space Station. They work in isolated, confined, hostile environments. Hundreds of papers, maybe 1,000, hundreds of papers have been published in peer-reviewed journals, in the leading journals of the world, where in the last 23 years, 235 astronauts from 18 countries have participated in healthcare projects on board the ISS. In addition to that, every single person, including Amazon and Elon Musk and his team, who were in outer space just for 7 minutes or 6 minutes, even they have participated in some small project to the other. Every one of the remaining 365 have also been part of healthcare studies. Post-COVID-19, in just 37 days, NASA and the Jet Propulsion Laboratory developed the Vital Ventilator, and 31 licenses were awarded to 100 applicants, making it the most licensed NASA technology. This ventilator was developed in 37 days to meet the COVID pandemic, purely because ventilators were already being, enormous study was being done in the ISS. Larger and uniform crystals, crystallography in microgravity environment helps better interpretation of molecular structures, aiding drug discovery, delivery methods, and reducing side effects. Today, we are talking of computer simulation. Global navigation satellite systems. Today, all of us are familiar with Google Maps. Google Maps is getting better and better. This GPS, again, is a direct fallout of the intergalactic space satellites, which were being launched in the last 10 to 15 years. Reducing light scatter in cameras. We are accustomed to 50 megapixel 4 cameras on Apple 13, Apple 14, and whatnot. How many of us know this is directly a fallout of cameras which were developed by NASA initially? Capsules swallowed can be connected into balloons in the stomach. This has recently been introduced at Chennai. Just imagine, for bariatric surgery in Mumbai, it's just available in Chennai also. Imagine that you don't even have to do an endoscopic surgery. I can reduce the volume of the stomach by swallowing a capsule, a radio frequency Bluetooth enabled capsule. The capsule goes into my stomach, and externally through a Bluetooth technology, I open a balloon inside the capsule. The balloon opens and I reduce the volume of the stomach, and this is kept permanently in position. This is not science fiction. This is already available even in India. This is what is happening because of space technology. Programmable pacemakers, deep brain stimulation of the brain is now routine. There are at least 20 centers in India. Parkinsonism was treated more than 15 years ago by putting an electrode in the brain. I am absolutely certain that in my lifetime, I will see electrodes being put in specific areas of the brain to control diabetes, to control hypertension, to control obesity. Ethical issues arise because the individuals 10 years, 20 years from now want what is called augmentative or restorative neurology. I want to be better than what God made me do. And therefore, this is an ethical issue. It is theoretically possible to manipulate certain areas in the brain and increase my cardiac output. And Bolt is not the only person who can run the mile in less than 4 minutes. I will be able to run the mile in less than 4 minutes by manipulating my own body. Detailed studies in microgravity of cells and microbes. Microbiology is a fascinating area where enormous work has been done because these microbes were cultured in outer space. We are simulating microgravity. I mean, I could go on and on. Wearables, I've already spoken about wearables. And this is the capsule endoscopy, a direct fallout of what was used in space technology. From supernovas to melanomas. Melanomas are skin cancers, particularly common in Australia, New Zealand, and several other countries. It's not very common in India. Skin cancer is a growing problem. And one of the greatest advantages in this today, with a smartphone, you can, with a 99% accuracy, you just take an image of a skin discoloration in the skin and send it, and the smartphone will be able to tell you with a 99% accuracy whether this is skin cancer or not. Simple things like invisible braces. All of us have seen little children wearing very unsightly braces on their teeth. Today, it is possible to have invisible braces. The metallurgy involved in this is absolutely amazing. And instead of metals and unsightly braces, it can be transparent braces where you don't even know that a person is wearing a braces. Yesterday, or I think this morning, the government announced that they have set apart 76,000 crores for manufacturing chips in India. You know that the semiconductor industry in India has taken a beating because they're exporting it from the rest of the world. And all this is entirely what is used in the rest of the world. Satellite imaging help prevent strokes. The same technology which is used, the same technology can be used to image. Today, experimental studies are going on. Imagine, you are all familiar with stenting. If fetal medicine is maybe available for the last couple of years, and I'm sure in the next couple of years, we will be able to enter with sub-millimeter precision. We will be able to navigate a catheter 1 diameter or less than 1 millimeter diameter into the middle cerebral artery in a condition called aneurysm of the vein of Galen. Extremely uncommon, but nevertheless happens in the unborn. And we will be able to operate inside the brain of the unborn and ensure that blood supply is restored or changed. All this is now being done in the laboratory. It's just a question of time before it becomes available. Robotics, I am absolutely delighted that 100% indigenous robotics are being developed, not by the IITs and the All India Institute of Medical Science. These are now being by state medical colleges from Kerala, Karnataka. I happen to be on the several committees of the Department of Biotechnology, BIRAC, and I'm directly involved in evaluating proposals for funding. There are so many proposals which we receive, and robots are now used in wards in some district hospitals, not just the AIIMS and NIMHANS and national institutes. And I believe that robots will be seen in hospitals in the next couple of years. Now, a direct fallout of space technology is recalibrating fine motor skills. rehabilitation. I don't have exact statistics, but I do know it's a huge commercial market. There are millions and millions of people in India who need rehabilitation. When I was a medical student and a postgraduate, we just had a very crude Jaipur foot, a mechanical prosthesis. Today, we are not talking of electronic feet. We are talking of neuroelectronic. We are talking of electronic prostheses which are physically connected to the spinal cord and the brain-computer interface, and I am able to make my prosthesis. I can ask my prosthesis to lift this bottle of water. It is my brain which gives the command, and these things are being done indigenously in India, recalibrating fine motor skills. New capabilities for grasp-assisting gloves. BIRAC itself has funded at least half a dozen projects, and the Make in India, Become Digital, etc. In the next few years, we are going to get all this. Cyber gloves, where you get a haptic sensation. It's going to be a very crude form of sensation, but nevertheless, I am now using a mouse. I have a cursor. I can put my cursor on the screen, and in the next couple of years, I will be able to have a very crude sensation. I will be able to know whether the thyroid, the multinodular goiter, the huge enlarged thyroid of a patient 20,000 kilometers away or even 200 kilometers above the earth, whether it is cystic, whether it contains fluid, or whether it is solid, whether it is ossified with bone, that level of crude sensation, I will be able to see with high-speed internet. So this is what is actually happening, and all this is a product of space technology. These are the vests, intelligent vests, which monitor ECG, blood pressure, sweat. From the sweat, from the byproduct of sweat, we will be able to measure not just sugar, we can measure electrolytes. I foresee that the glucometer, as we know it today, will be relegated to the Jurassic Park in just a few years from now. Non-invasive blood sugar monitoring, or a surrogate decision marker, which will tell you the equivalent of a blood sugar. Unfortunately, in the real world, multinational companies, trillions of dollars are involved if glucometer goes out of the market. So there is a tremendous resistance to this. But if we are able to control this, this is what is going to happen. 3D printing. I never in my wildest dreams thought that I would see 3D printing in India. Today, 3D printing has already started at the All India Institute of Medical Science, New Delhi, several of national cardiac centers, and I am sure that within the next 5 to 2 years in India, we are not talking of organ transplants, we will be talking of customized valves, we will be talking of customized kidneys, livers, hearts, and all this enormous role in 3D printing. In fact, one company has already got patents, and this company has already taken a space in the ISS, and this company has already started the prototype of manufacturing a liver in outer space. I mean, it will take many, many years before it becomes clinically available, but this is the future, producing organs in outer space and bringing them back to Earth. A direct, immediate consequence of space technology is this fantastic butterfly ultrasound, a Doppler. You can see a smartphone, but in the smartphone, I will be able to quantify the exact volume of blood which goes from the atrium into the ventricle to the carotid artery, vertebral artery, etc. Unfortunately, in India, because of the antenatal pregnancy testing, etc., there are too many regulations. Unless the legislation is totally changed, we will never be able to use this in the real world. But in Western countries, this is what is going to happen. And a blood test on a chip. We have several telemedicine centers around India, and we use a POCD, point of care diagnostics, with a single drop of blood. I don't need even a paramedic. Anybody can do it. I have taught patients, my staff has taught patients how to do it. We are today able to do liver function tests, renal function tests, cardiac enzymes in the remotest parts of India, but it's very expensive. It's just a question of time before the expense comes down. So, ladies and gentlemen, with 1%, several studies show that at least 1% of the global GDP is spent on something or the other which is directly or indirectly related to space exploration. 1% of GDP is a huge amount, but again, many of these studies show that it should be possible. This is just an example how there is no limit. Distance has become meaningless. I always say geography has become history. And this is a specific report in the Lancet or New England Journal of Medicine. I forget one of the peer-reviewed journals, how a NASA astronaut's blood clot in space was treated by a doctor on Earth. NASA did not foresee this. A very interesting case, how an astronaut was doing a research study and he did a Doppler on himself, and to his horror, he found that he had a thrombosis inside the jugular vein. The was communicated to the Earth, a surgeon saw it, and they did not have supplies. They did not have drugs for the next 3 months. This astronaut was in the ISS. Very simple. They placed an order with the pharmacy. The pharmacy delivered the drugs. The spaceship landed on ISS, and they just like Apollo Pharmacy or any other person comes to your house and delivers the drug, exactly the same thing was done. The astronaut just went out with the EVA, extravehicular activity, took out the drugs and gave the drug. And 6 months later, this astronaut came back to the Earth, fully managed and controlled by a doctor on Earth. I could go on and on, but I will stop with this. This is again one of the leading journals of the world. There are hundreds of people. Today we think they're all crazy, we think they're mad, but I think they are the people who are going to show us what the world is going to be. A very detailed paper on how digital health technology will support human mission to Mars. Today, the NASA is getting ready with every possible eventuality, including robotic surgery. Telemedicine cannot take place in any trip to Mars because it takes 20 minutes with the present speed of communication, 20 minutes for a message to go from the Earth to reach Mars, and another 20 minutes for it to come back again. So what is going to happen is most astronauts are going to be taught a very high level of healthcare. They are going to be autonomous robots. These robots are already being trained successfully on animals, pigs, chimpanzees, etc. It's quite some time before a robot will be able to do a surgery completely on a human being, of course, telementored and controlled by humans, but this is what is going to take place. Now, just to show you that I'm not talking science fiction, 2 years ago, I persuaded the editor of Neurology India, which is the world's 5th leading journal in neurosciences, PubMed index with an impact index of 2.9. I'm very delighted that almost 30% of the articles in Neurology India are from contributors from developed countries, the Middle East, Europe, US, etc. So we brought out a special supplement on extraterrestrial neurosciences. And to my amazing surprise and utter satisfaction, every one of these papers were downloaded more than 3,000 to 4,000 times. India has reached the stage where we talk of extraterrestrial neurosciences. And I believe that in the next 10 years, there will be a short notes question, at least in DM MCH examinations, on the effect of space on neurosciences and eventually on all cardiac sciences. We need to be future ready. Most of us are afraid of the future. We cling desperately to the present, not realizing that we have already become the past. When I started or broached the topic of telemedicine 21 years ago, everybody laughed and ridiculed. Today, telemedicine has become an integral part of the healthcare delivery system. I mean, 10 years ago, I couldn't have imagined such a fantastic research park in Chennai with all this state-of-the-art equipment. And I think this is very clear to show. I think space medicine is important. And I believe that the Indian Gaganyaan mission, which is scheduled to take off in just 15, 18 months from now, will totally revolutionize the way healthcare is in India. Thank you once again for giving me this opportunity to put together my thoughts. I hope I've not exceeded this time. If there are any questions, I'll be happy to.
Thank you. Thank you, Dr. Ganapathy, for this fascinating exploration of extraterrestrial medicine.
The mic on, I can't hear you.
Thank you for journey to the status of
Extraterrestrial healthcare. I have one question before I open to the audience. Some of the technologies that will be used to protect astronauts To protect astronauts from the hazards of external space, some of the technologies that will be developed, countermeasures for the safety of astronauts in space, outer space, how are they validated or tested? Is it purely by simulation on Earth, or it's a trial and error?
Obviously, I mean, you're also a medical doctor, so obviously double-blind randomized controlled studies with p-value of all that is just not possible. The numbers are too few. I think, what should I say? It's laboratory experiments to a large extent. It's unethical to do any such study. So it's purely based on laboratory and the individuals respond. I mean, if I have headache 300 kilometers above the earth and a particular method of treatment relieves me my headache, that's good enough. I don't need, unlike vaccination where you require a follow-up and you require 100,000 people to do a study. Here, but landing one man on the moon is statistically significant enough. You don't need to land 10 people on the moon to say that this is effective.
Thank you. Any questions from the audience?
So you show those pictures from NASA, like beyond. So are you actually involved with NASA?
I was not involved because I had edited the special edition. I was in communication with several people from all over the world. So I happened to be in Houston and I got permission to, it was not too bad. Of course, I had to do a lot of paperwork, etc. But it was not too bad. I got security clearance and I got permission. And one of the flight surgeons took me around in great detail, about 6 to 8 hours I spent. That's all. I wish I could. And let me share with you, of course, it's not to be quoted outside. I have been sort of honorary consultant, if you want to call it, not officially or formally, but with ISRO, particularly for the telemedicine. So I had made some presentations to the chairman also and to the director of the Human Space Flight Mission, and I was hoping that with my passion and interest, I would also be involved. But then they outsourced it to the Indian Air Force Institute of Aviation Medicine. The entire healthcare of the Gaganyaan mission and the IAF are absolutely paranoid about it. They said, no way a civilian can come within 10 miles of this thing. So for security reasons, they totally, I had no opportunity. Though I have surveyed the world literature about 2 years ago. I've written a couple of papers, etc. No, research is going on, but they're all highly classified, secure. They're just not, I mean, they are NASA surprising. I mean, I could visit so many places. NASA was very transparent about it, but India, the security is very high. It's just not, I mean, even though many of them know me, I had contacts with them and all that. There's no way I could, civilian, just not. So I don't know. Answered your question is I don't know. But I read the media report that IIT Madras has got a small group or something which are interacting with ISRO. In fact, I wrote to Dr. Bhaskar Ramurthy and told him that I would like to be a part of this, but nothing happened. I'm told IIT Madras has some.
Just one more question. So how real is that endoscopy here?
It's available. It was available in Coimbatore about more than 7-8 years now. This is really available. See, you'll be surprised. Even in India, there are CEOs, if you want to call them, or other people who cannot spare the 90 minutes required or 60 minutes required. And they don't want to go through the, I mean, today endoscopy is fantastic. You don't even feel no pain, nothing. But, it's more fun swallowing a capsule and taking it out in your excreta and giving it. And this will negotiate everything. I mean, there are enough papers, enough studies done which show that the capsule camera is as good as this. But one major disadvantage of the capsule is in a regular endoscopy, when the endoscopist sees on a big screen a suspicious area, he can, within seconds, he can take a biopsy and pull it out. So we get tissue for diagnosis. In a capsule, if the capsule shows an ulcerated lesion, you have to come back for a regular endoscopy.
Talking about a bit of variation. What for instance, that area around Chernobyl is full of vegetation, and there are animals also, wild animals. I think information.
No, I honestly accepting what you're telling me now. But one thing, the analogy is totally inappropriate in the sense for space missions, because there is an acute episode, hyper acute episode, both in Chernobyl and in other places. We are now, NASA scientists are not looking at this. I mean, I won't say they're not looking, but that's not their priority. Their priority is what happens to the human body with micro. See, when I walk in the sun, I'm exposed to radiation, and today your meters are so sophisticated. They have shown that in Kanyakumari, for example, the incidence of cancers and in certain types of cancers in Kalpakam, very close by, within 3 kilometers radius, they have shown that perhaps, but they may not be statistically significant, we don't know. But Kanyakumari, definitely they have shown that the incidence and problems are slightly higher than other parts. Okay, now, so what the space scientists are looking at is to simulate small doses of radiation. See, I used to do angiograms when this before the CT scan came. I've done for 5 years. I've done angiograms. I wore a lead shield, but that is all. And I directly injected into the carotid artery almost 2 or 3 per day. So we were exposed to radiation, but we were wearing a meter, which was compulsory in those days. We were wearing a meter. But here, what in space, you are exposed to radiation. So what is the effect of the, we know what is the effect of radiation immediately, but we don't know what is the long-term effect of radiation. That only time will tell. But there have been cases of astronauts developing cancers 20 years later, 30 years later. Whether this is, the numbers are too small, so we just don't know whether it is because you were in outer space, you got this cancer, or even if you had not been in outer space, you would have got this cancer. We don't know. Mainly experimental. Yeah, absolutely. Correct, correct. Incidence and prevalence in a normal environment. Vestibular organs, cock.
How much does it get disturbed?
100% it gets disturbed. 100% it gets disturbed. Every moment you leave the confines of the earth, you will develop this. So that is why all of them are trained, months and months of training in simulated environment. But interestingly, and this was told to me by one of the people in NASA directly, you cannot simulate. I was very surprised when I was told this. You cannot simulate microgravity on Earth. There's no way you can simulate even an equivalent of microgravity for long periods of time, apparently. So that is why they go under the, like I showed you, the swimming pool. They go underwater for 8 hours. So being underwater for 8 hours is a closest, I am told. I don't know. I honestly don't know. But the answer to your question is 100% of people develop a vestibular problem. 100%. So they take prophylactic drugs. They take Dramamine and other medicines before they take all this. Oh, Thais, can I ask one of the people to make a commentary? There's a lady there who's a very distinguished space scientist.
Sorry?
There is a lady there. Dr. Thais, can you hear me? Sorry, I didn't see you. Can you unmute yourself, Dr. Thais? Dr. Rusumano? Yeah.
Yes, yes.
Thank you for joining. I just want to introduce Dr. Rusumono. My interest in space science was rekindled entirely by her. I mean, there was a dormant interest, but I met her in Rio de Janeiro in Brazil about 5 years ago for a conference. And she was absolutely, her talk was so inspiring. After that, I got involved. Dr. Rusumono, would you like to make a few comments? She is not like me. I am a fraud. I am a humbug. I am everything pseudo. She is a full-time professor of space physiology, and she's a full-time space scientist. She has actually done low Earth orbit space flights, etc. Why don't you please tell us for a few minutes your comments? And sorry, if I had known you were there, I would not have opened my mouth at all. Whatever stupid things I said, you probably the only one who can say all you said was absolutely nonsense.
No, it was a wonderful presentation. Congratulations.
Please go ahead, Professor Rusumono.
It was a wonderful presentation. Can you hear me? Can you all hear me? My micro is open, but I cannot see if you... can you hear me, Ganapathy? Can you hear me?
We can hear you, madam. We can hear you loud and clear.
Okay, so so first of all, congratulations for your presentation. It was extremely good. I liked very much the way that you divided the presentation.
Can you hear?
It flowed very well.
We are not able to hear you clearly. Can you come a little closer or something?
Yeah, I'm trying to talk as loud as possible. Can you hear me now?
It looks like you're 300 kilometers above the earth.
I think that
I don't know what is happening. No, Pono, I did that.
Can someone help? Because I think that everybody can hear me, but I don't think that Ganapathy can hear me. Juliana can hear me. Ganapathy, can you hear me?
Maybe I am a little hard of hearing.
Can someone help him there?
Just a few minutes, a few seconds. We are trying to see if something can be done at our end. Any expert here who can? Incidentally, this Dr. Thais, this talk is at the Indian Institute of Technology. I'm sure she's in London. I'm sure you're familiar with IIT. This is a IIT alumni group. So a very distinguished group of people who all graduated from IIT many, many years ago.
Can you hear me now?
Yeah, now we can hear you loud and clear. Please go ahead.
Okay, so very good. So first of all, I really enjoyed our presentation. I think that it flowed very well. The three parts that we divided, the introduction, your personal experience, and then the human body. But I think that it was extremely important also to see beyond the knowledge regarding the effects of space flight on human body. It was very important that you cover the technology and knowledge transfer from space to Earth. I think that it is very important for people to have this idea. I would also like to congratulate India for the space program. I was very impressed when I went there to visit India. And I think that this new step to have a space station, an Indian space station, is amazing, is awesome. To have the first 4 Vyomonauts orbiting the Earth very soon, it is also a huge step. So I think that India is it's going to be a very important country in the space era. And I'm happy that somehow I could contribute to India with some lectures and publication of articles. And I hope to do more with you, Ganapathy, and all our space colleagues and friends. So congratulations for your presentation. It was excellent, believe me. I really enjoyed that.
Thank you, Dr. Thais.
I think that Professor Juliana had a question, but then I stepped in. Sorry, Juliana. So he invited me to talk, so I had to.
Is Juliana also with Innova Space?
Yes, she's in Innova Space.
Madam, Madam, why don't you, Dr. Thais has an organization called Innova Space, very active. Would you like to make some comments, Juliana?
Yes, thank you. First of all, I really enjoyed your presentation as well. It was really interesting. Thanks so much. And I'm from Brazil, so I'm a member of the Science Technology Hub of Innova Space, and I co-lead in Brazil with Dr. Thais Russomano, the Space and Extreme Environment Research Center here in the south of Brazil. So my question is about the use of virtual reality and augmented reality. Do you have some experience using that for simulations or something like that related to space? Because actually, Dr. Thais and I, we are advising a PhD student that will be using virtual reality to some experiments for space. And well, I'd like to hear from you if you have some experience or have you heard about something related to that use of virtual or augmented reality or mixed reality.
Okay, thank you. Any question? Inga, sorry?
Yeah, I'm sorry. I don't know if I was clear because I talked a lot. Actually, my question is if you know some experiment or something, some project using virtual reality or augmented reality.
Augmented reality.
Okay,
yeah, for simulations, for example.
I personally have not used it, but I am aware of a few centers in India which are just doing this, but it's sporadic. It's not yet become a part of clinical practice, but I do believe that there is a great future in it. It's just starting. I personally know.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Okay, thank you. We are signing off now. We're signing off. Thank you, everybody. We are signing off now.